All right. So we are going to be going over some stuff with Microsoft Forms today. Just kind of a precursor into this. I'm coming into this with the assumption that most of us have built forms before, or at least been in there. So I may not cover all the stuff as if you were new to forms. So I'm kind of taking a leap there. But I am going to show you some of the features that hopefully are a little more advanced that you can get used to make them, I guess, more meaningful for you in the classroom here. So the first thing I wanted to do was take a look at that home page on forms. So this takes a little bit to get used to. And I know a lot of people say that they have forms and they can't find them. So the one thing I wanted to bring up first is you do have tabs up here. You have My Forms, which are ones you've created. You have the Shared With Me. So if you've been added to a form by somebody, this is where it's going to show up. And then you also have your group forms. So if you're using a form in your Microsoft team and you send it out to them through Teams, this is where they're going to show up. And you can actually click here and search by which team you sent it out, and you can click and go into them that way. So I know sometimes it's hard to find those when we send them through Teams, but this is a quick way to find whatever ones you need to do. It's just important to remember when we send them through Teams, it actually creates a brand new form for each team I send that out to. So instead of having them clutter up this My Forms page, they're over in this group form area. So that's just a real quick overview of those little parts. So when we go into forms, we have two main options. You have the new form and the new quiz. So the difference between the two is the new quiz is what you're going to do when you want points associated with it, when you want to be able to have it graded and be able to look and see they got 12 out of 15, you're going to run and create a quiz. When you create a form, it's more of that survey aspect, or you're collecting information, or you're trying to figure out some info on certain groups of kids. That's what that form is going to be for. So it's really important you choose the right one right away, because you can't change these once you've picked it and started building it. So the new quiz and the new form. Now what we're going to do to start is I actually have a sample form I built that has a lot of the features I'm going to go over, but I just wanted to show you guys what these look like in real time. So I'm going to show you this. So this is a form I built actually earlier today, and it has a lot of the features we're going to talk about. So the first thing I want to talk about is up here, and I'll show you how to do this in a little bit, but I put a header in here. So on your forms, you can insert an image as a header. So you can have that, and that just kind of spruces up the way it looks. You can do your own custom backgrounds, and when you upload a picture, it'll actually try to sync a theme to yours. So that's just kind of the aesthetics of it, looking at it, how it looks. So this is, again, the header, the title. Now, some of the question types we get, you do have an option for date. So that's just a quick one I throw on most of my forms. And the reason I put it in like this is because it has a calendar option. So I can just click and choose the date and go over it from there. So we get on to question 2, and you can see this only looks like 2 questions right now. That's because I use something called branching in here. And I'm going to show you guys how to branch here after a while. But I have a question here. Do you want to see more cool features of forms? If you would click yes, watch what happens. It expands to question 3. If they were to click no, they would just click next. If they click maybe, I have it back to question 3. So this is that branching part, to where if you are sending out a survey and you only have, it's a question that if they answer it, they need to answer more parts. This is how you branch that to allow them to do that. So I'm going to go ahead and click on yes, because it brings me to another point, is in your forms, you can put videos straight into your form. So they can click and watch this video right here inside your form. So you don't have to go to an outside source. It's not a link. It's right there embedded right in the form. You can use YouTube videos or any Microsoft Stream videos. Those are the 2 you can use in here. And then with that video, you can have a question attached right to it. So have you guys seen this video? It's really funny. I'm going to play that. This is that sale video. We're just gonna watch this. I don't know why it's so funny. I just love it. But so you can have a question in there, and then we look at this answer type. This is a drop-down menu, so they can choose why did the cat jump, and we'll go with tired of being quarantined for the reason. So now that they have everything answered, we can click next. And this will bring us to the next part is I actually have sections in this form too. So when I click next, it brings us to a new section. So now it's a different section of my form. This one's getting some math examples. So I have some questions in here. This one is solve for X. And with the math, the really cool thing is they have this math feature built into forms now. And it actually is very intuitive and very smart because you can create one problem. And I created this problem. It gave me my answer choices and selected the correct answer for me. So I don't have to worry about having to solve each problem I create in there. And then as soon as I made it, it also gave me the option to choose more that follow that same format. So I didn't type any of this. All I did was click add, and it added this next question for me. So that's that math feature. It does that for me and builds questions that follow the same suit for whatever I have up here. So here's a couple math questions in here, how it could look. Now math, you also, so not only choices, but there's an equation part inside when you build a math question to where students will get a little equation builder. So that's always the hard part with math is students being able to write out equations and expressions with having only their keyboard. But so in here, I put an image in this. It's a graph. And the question is to write the equation that goes with that graph. So when they click on this, they actually get the ability to write out that equation using this little calculator. So I think this is a y equals mx plus b equation plus 6. So they can put that equation right in there. So it makes it a lot easier for typing in math especially. So now I'm going to click next. I'm going to go to my next section. So instead of having one long form, I broke this into sections so then they can go to each one and go on. Our next one, I did some ELAR examples. I put this in there. This is a poem. The reason I put that in there was just to show you the amount of text you can put inside a box. There is a character limit. I reached it once when I tried to copy a whole article from ReadWorks right in there. But there, you can put a lot of information here. So you can put a full passage, just paste it right in here, and then you can have your answers. Now this question type is a long response. So here students would type out their long response. So this would be a paragraph form. And they could keep going. Now another great thing about forms I want to show you real quick is you've seen on the questions this little book. That's Immersive Reader. So no matter what form I'm giving my students, it has a reader built into it. So we talk about accommodations. So all I got to do is click on this Immersive Reader. It's going to pop up.
7. Read this poem and then answer the question below.
And then each word also has a dictionary with it. So the red ones, it's not coming up. The pictures aren't loading. But each word has a dictionary with it. Complaining, so they can click on it.
Complaining.
And hear it and keep going. There's a lot of other settings in this Immersive Reader. If you have students with dyslexia, I know some students, my stuff's not loading. So I'll skip that for now. But you can change the background of it. So you can do it to a lighter color. You can do it to a different text. You can increase the size. You can actually highlight verbs and adverbs and all that kind of stuff in here. So that's that Immersive Reader, and that's built into all of this. So all they have to do is click that book and it'll read it out loud to them. It doesn't matter what browser you're in, it's built right in. So that's a long response question. Now this is a newer feature. They have an upload files thing now too. So in ELAR, if you want to have the kids upload their latest rough draft, all they have to do is click upload file, and then they can find that file right from their documents and put it in there. So they can upload a file right to here, which is a really cool feature, and allows you to collect that information pretty easily. You can adjust the size limits on there so you can determine how big you want them to upload and go from there. So that upload file could be pretty impactful.
Hey, Joe, I have a quick question on that. Do you know if there's a limit to the file size?
Up to 1 gigabyte.
Okay.
So, I mean, it's pretty large. There's not going to have many documents that are going to over 1 gigabyte.
Right.
Now, it does have to be either a Word, a PowerPoint, an image.
PDF.
Those, I think you'll run into some problems with uploading conversion, but shouldn't
I'm
be.
assuming a PDF also.
Yep, PDFs would work.
Yeah.
All right, so now looking a little bit for science. So this is another question type here. This is a drag and drop. So all you gotta do is drag and drop and move them around. You can put them in the right order. This is for the scientific process. So this drag and drop is a pretty cool one. When I sent out, or when I built the middle school class choices, this is how I had students rank their elective choices, is they just dragged whatever their top choice was to the top and then went from there. So this drag and drop can be very beneficial. Now you also have the Likert question, which this kind of creates a matrix or a rubric type thing. So you could select different answers for each one, however you wanted to do that. But it's a little bit different type of interactive question they can do, where they have to do some, I guess, higher level thinking rather than just guessing which is which. So that's the Likert question. Next, I'm going to get into some history. So if we're looking at history, those are just the topics of them. But the question type, this is a multiple response. So when they do a choice question, they can actually choose multiple answers on here, and then they can answer that way. So they don't just have to have one answer, they can have multiple answers on there. So that's a multiple answer one. Then you have a short answer one. So again, I put an image in there and asked them, so what does that depict? And that is the, ooh, there we go. So that's the short answer. It doesn't give them as many characters as a long answer would. So it would just be something that could be answered in one sentence or a few words.
Hey, Joe,
Yes, sir.
when I do short answers on mine, if they don't type it exactly the way I do, in other words, if they put a capital letter or if they do something different, it counts it wrong.
Yep, and that
Yes,
is
sir.
when you build it for your answer choices. That's the hard part with text, but you'd have to put in the variations that you would accept as an answer choice. So you'd have to put in an answer with capitals, one with lowercase. I've seen some people, if there's a common misspelling, they'll put them in with misspelling, and I'll show you how to add those correct answer choices here in a second. But you can
Okay.
adjust which answer choices you would accept.
Okay.
All right. I'm just gonna get through here. I went back out of my form. And the last one I had on there, it's not really that important, was just a rating. So you can do a rating on there. So you can adjust between 1 to 10, and you can do stars or whatever you want. So when students are done, all they do is hit submit, and that's all good. Okay. So the reason I brought that up was just to show you some of those features that are built in here. Now I'm going to show you how to do a lot of those. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start a brand new form, and then as I'm building, and I'm making a quiz just to show you some of those items. As I'm building, if there's questions on how I'm building this or stuff that I'm doing, please just pop in. I'll go step by step. We're going to be looking at the settings we're going to do, the theme, the header, the date, videos, branching, sections, question types, math, sharing, grading, teams with forms, and then how to do dynamic data versus static data. So that's just a couple quick things. So the first thing I want to do is talk about when you create a quiz. So this is a quiz, so it's going to have points associated with it. The first thing you want to do is adjust your settings to make sure it matches what you want. So in this more settings button, So this is something that some teachers want turned off, is this show results automatically. So if you guys were to take this form, if I turn that off, that means you won't see what your score was when it's done. If I have this on, you're going to see your score right away. So this is, some teachers like that, some teachers don't. If you want that immediate feedback, you can have that on. For down here, who can fill out this form? If you do anyone with a link can respond, that's the one you need to do when it's someone outside of our district is taking it. So if it's somebody is inside our district, you're gonna want to have this only people in my organization can respond. Now, if you have a one going out to parents though, you'd have to have it with anyone with a link can respond, because they don't have school IDs that they can use to respond to this. If it's just in class or if it's with teachers, anyone in the organization can respond, or only people in the organization can respond. Now I always have this, the record name automatically. And then if you want only one response per person, you can check that. If you want to be able to redo it, leave it open. They can submit it as many times as they want to then. Some other options on here, you do have the start date, end date. You can customize that thank you message. So if they're done and you want to put a link in there even, you could say, now that you're done, please go to this link, and they can click on that link and go explore something else. So you could customize that thank you message. You do have the option to send an email receipt to the people so they get a response from what they did. And then you could get an email notification for each person that responds. I never check this because otherwise you're going to be getting 5 million emails, because each response will send you a new email. So those are the settings you really need to think about before you start building, like how you're going to set this up, and get those established before you start building. So now that we're into it, we do have themes we can choose from. And Janelle, you may be able to answer this. Sometimes in my themes, I get a lot of updated options, and sometimes it's just this basic one. Do you know why that's different? No idea? She's shaking her head no if you can't see her. All right, so for some reason, when I go to make forms, maybe it's, if I do it.
Hey, do you think maybe it's the app versus you're using it in Teams?
I don't think so. Right now I'm only building this in forms. And even if I do it in Teams, it's still just coming up in forms.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know for sure. But anyway, you do have the option of themes. So you can customize your theme by uploading your own image if you wanted to, or you can search an image and upload it. I'm going to go ahead and pick a school background and upload that. And when I upload that, it's going to find the color theme to go with it. So I can just use that and put that in there. Did not find my image. Try it again. There we go. All right, so now I have my custom background. Now in your header, like I said, you can also put an image. So if you had another image you want to use as a header, I use this, the SSISD, the header quite a bit for a lot of mine. So you can put that header in there, and this is just aesthetics, cosmetics, however you want it to look. You can put that in there. You always want to give them a title. So this will be just a sample form that we're building. All right, so that's adding that background and then adding a header. I'm gonna go ahead and jump.
So I have a question about that header. I don't know, I haven't dealt with that a lot, but is there a suggested size for that header? Does it give it to you? Because sometimes when you just try to drop images in headers like that, it messes it up. Does it auto adjust? Do you know?
Yeah, it'll autofill to whatever parameters they have. There's just a height restriction in here, and like mine's not even loading right now. But
Okay.
there is a height restriction, but I just guess and check on there.
Okay.
All right, so now we'll go into a little bit adding questions here. So the first thing I want to do is look at the different question types we have. So we have choice, text, rating, date. And if I click this arrow, I have a ranking, a Likert, a file upload. We never use this Net Promoter Score. That's just in there for whatever. And then we do have the option of adding a new section. So the first one I'm going to put in there is date. Now, if you have your settings, when you go to look at your data, the date's going to be collected automatically. So you don't have to have this in there unless you want to be able to, for some reason, pull it for I don't know why. So you don't have to have that date area in there. But you can have it in there. So if you need the student's birthday, you could put that in there and they could select their birthday. If you're doing history and you need to do something like what was the date of the end of the Revolutionary War, you could put that in there. So that's just a date area. Now with all questions, because it's a quiz, I'd have to put a point value in there. You can leave that point value blank. That just means it won't count as anything, but you can have a point value in there if you'd like. You can turn them required. You can take that on or off. And for this one, that would be it. So that's just that date area if you want. I did want to look at, so I'm going to choose a choice now. So choice are your multiple choice. So if I have it just as multiple choice, this means only one answer is correct. You can change that right here to multiple answers. So when I change that to multiple answers now, that means I can have more than one correct answer. I can just mark which one's correct just by switching that on and off. Now in your questions, if you want to put a video in there, if you just do this insert media, you can choose from an image or a video. If you choose on video, you just have to find your URL from YouTube. So I'm going to pull up a random YouTube video. Let's see what pops up on the feed. Huh. Weird. All right. So I'm going to put this video in there real quick. Little self-promotion. So I add that in there, it embeds right away. That video is ready, good to go. This video idea, that's what I did with, I'm going to show you our middle school. For our Zoom meetings, this was the policy and procedure we sent out to teachers for middle school. So they had to watch the video and then they had to check, I watched the video, then they had to go to this link and check that, go to this link and check that. So this is just kind of an accountability way to make sure students are watching things or to make sure people are going through things. You could send them out in a form and they could do that. And we'll go back to this one. So that's putting our video in. You can also, if you didn't want to do a video, I'll go to choices again. You could do an image, and your images you can either search or again you can upload from your own device. However you wanted to put that in there. I'm gonna go and put my history example in there. So you can put your image in there, and once it's in there, you do have the option to change how you want it to look. So if you wanted it bigger, all you gotta do is click on that pencil to edit it, make it bigger or smaller. So click on that again. That pencil will allow you to edit. Now you can add alternate text, and this alternate text, what that does is it tells the computer what to read. So if you're doing Immersive Reader, whatever this alternate text says is what the computer will read out loud to them. So that's the reason we put that in there if you have oral accommodations you need for pictures and everything like that. So that's how you put an image, that's how you put a video in there. As simple as that. It's just, again, that add media button, find the one you want and throw it in. And then of course, again, you can do the point value for that. You can make it required, multiple answers, however you want to do that. So those are the videos and images. I guess the next thing I want to talk about is branching. All right, so now I'm going to put a question here. So let's say we had a question about, do you like cheese? So this is a basic question, and when I type that in there, I have suggested options that pop up, and all I have to do, if I want these options, click Add All, and those are in there ready to go. Now that I have a question set up, what I want to do is I want to click Add Branching. And when I do this, it's going to give me, when they click yes, where do I want them to go? So if they click yes, I want them to go move on. If they click no, I want them to submit form. You can choose based on what answer they choose where you'd like them to go. So I'm actually going to add a question here. This will be our next question. So I'm just going to put that in there as a placeholder. Now I'm going to go back to the branching on question number 3. And I'm going to say if they click yes, I want them to go to the next question. If they click no, I want them to end the form. If they click maybe, we're going to go ahead and go to the next question too. So that branching can allow you to go to different places in your form. So now when I go back and I preview this, if I click yes, it's going to pop up question 4. If I click no, it's going to make me submit the form. So that branching can be used for a lot of cool things, and can really help, I guess, make your form more individualized for your students. The one thing I don't like about just the branching to a different question is, let's say you're giving a question to them, and if they get it wrong, you want them to do another question. If they click the correct answer, or if they click the incorrect answer, this will pop up. If they click the correct answer, it won't pop up. So some students are smart enough that they're going to realize that if they don't want to do any more questions, they just need to click on the right one to get out of doing the work. So what we do instead is we put those on a new section. So instead of having a new question, I'm going to go to Add, and I'm going to go to Section. So when I create a new section, it divides my form up. So now this will be section 2. So now when I go to branching on this, instead of going to next question, I can go to next section. So what you could do is, if you had a question here, let's say it's a math question, they get it wrong, you could have the next section be all math questions of that same style, and they could practice more of those. So you can kind of help deduce where the problems are or eliminate different issues. If they get it correct though, maybe there's no reason for them to do more practice. So if they get it correct, they can just skip over everything and move straight to section 2. So by adding these sections, you can kind of personalize those forms and make it more targeted to the students' learning as they go through.
Hey, Joe, I'm just going to make a suggestion as somebody that's done a lot of branching forms. It's real easy to get lost in that. So I'm just going to suggest, if anybody wants to do one that's very detailed at all, to write, it's a good idea to plan that out on paper first before you start actually building it in your form, because it can get confusing, and you have to kind of work your way through it and test it out several times. But it's a great way to do differentiation also. Yeah.
So definitely the planning is huge when you're doing all this, how you want them to branch, how you want them to go out. But as you're working through, usually with the branching, I'm probably not going to do that on a daily assignment. But if I have something the kids are going to do over and over again, like a form where they're going to have for one of their choices in class, I'll use that branching to help guide their choices. If they chose project A, they go to this part, and then they answer the questions from that. So that's where you use the branching. And I probably wouldn't use the branching too much on a quiz either. I just don't think with the points and how everything adds up that you'd be able to make that branching work very well in a quiz. So maybe more in that form area. So those are the branchings, how they're set up. You can either branch to a new question, you can branch to a new section, or if they're done, you can just straight up end that form. If you want to be done with it, they can end the form. All right. So branching sections, those are good. we'll go ahead and go to our next thing now. So looking at a couple more type of the question types, or a couple of different options. So again, we have our choice. Our choices are multiple choice, or we can select multiple answer. Now in this, you can also make those a drop-down menu instead. So when they look at them, instead of having to be able to click on a bubble, they would instead, it's not gonna let me, see if I can get this done real quick. I don't know, I may have messed up my branching. But anyway, that would just be a drop-down menu they could click on. I showed you guys an example of that in our sample form. So those are on our choice ones. For our text, really the main thing to remember with text is that you do have the option of a short answer or a long answer, and that just changes the amount of characters they can respond with. So if you're wanting a paragraph back, you'd make it a long answer. If it's just a quick couple words, just go ahead and make that a short answer. Now I know Mike asked a question here of how we can get different answers in there. So if I had that triangular trade question, so where the answer was triangular trade, if I go to add answer, I could put that in there as the right answer, but then I could also add another one. And this is where I could put my variations that would be correct as a correct answer too. Did that not work? Janelle, am I misspeaking here? You're muted, Janelle.
Sorry. Are you pushing enter every time?
Yeah, trying to.
No, you should be able to put more than one answer in there.
Yeah. Mike, do you know, is this the problem you were having with it before?
Yeah. Yes. I'm
So
not
when you,
muted.
Well, it wouldn't
When,
it wouldn't have an option to add another answer if you couldn't add another answer.
yeah. So
try something totally different.
so
Maybe it's thinking.
it does, it will, capitalization won't matter.
You know what will matter?
I mean,
Spelling.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have kids that miss something barely, and it gets counted wrong, and
Yeah.
or the way I wrote it, it's just a little bit different. Like if they put something backwards, and it's still a correct answer, but it counts it wrong.
Okay.
Hey, what about long answer? If you do long answer, do you have to fill in the long answer? So I mean, would you have to type a paragraph?
No.
No, you don't have the option to do a correct answer on long answer. So these are just going to be.
Okay.
You would have to eyeball
You'd have
that.
to grade that yourself. Yes. Okay.
So as you're going through and grading. And I know that for those that are counting wrong, now, from what I remember.
Honestly, Joe, if it's something like that, you would probably just use multiple choice, right?
It depends. Like,
Okay.
but on here, what I'm saying is like when you go through and grade, if you can change their grade on this form. So even if it counts it wrong, you can change that and give them the point on the form. So
an example, I did a video and I said, who was the victim here? And so somebody would type their first name and wouldn't put their last name. And somebody might, like, I want to say even capitalization was wrong, or they might have misspelled it by a letter. But it counted them wrong, even though they did get the right answer.
Okay. So I do know this one won't have any responses, but if you do go through your responses and you just shift through them, you would be able to change that kid's score if it come up that way. But other than that, I guess, yeah, there's really no, it can only think so much for them. So if they miss or something, it won't catch any of that. But you can add in, I know what I used to do is just add in what I knew would be like, so for triangular trade, I would have triangle trade in there too, just to make sure that those kids, they know what it is. It's technically the correct answer. Just have that in there just to make sure. But and then in your subtitles, that's where I'd give them more specific. So for your example, include first and last name, just so that they know exactly what they're supposed to write. That may help a little bit too.
Yeah, and Joe, that's also, I think that's also a reason that you probably wouldn't want the kids to see the score immediately, because the score may need to be adjusted for reasons like that.
Yeah. All right. So on to our next question type here. You do have the rating, which use however you want. You can change if you want it all the way up to 10. You can change that to numbers if you wanted to rate them. They could do that. If you're science and you're doing pH balance, they could list your pH here. However you want to do that. It's kind of however you use it is up to you. That rating is an option. The date we talked about, the ranking like I had in that other one to move from top to bottom. However you set it up, when you put in your answers, it should be in the correct order. And when the kids get the form, that's what it'll shuffle it for you. So when you put your answers in here, you put them by whatever comes first, second, third. And then the question, when they get it, it'll be shuffled for them and they'll have to drag and drop into the right order. So that's how it grades that one, is based on whatever order you put it in here. That's how they're going to grade that that ranking one. So we have ranking, the Likert questions. Again, this would be kind of based on your content area, how you want to set this question up or what kind of question you want to ask here. You could have, like I said, like I did with that example, is just different examples of laws of motion. So I could put that in here and then they'd have to choose which law of motion it was. So that's a way to use that. Honestly, these can be used for like a rubric purpose if you wanted that, so they could run through a rubric, however you wanted to set that up. But that Likert question is set up like that. Let's see what else is there. The file upload is pretty basic. All you gotta do is click on it. And what this does is it creates a new folder for you. So when they upload them, you'll get all those to a separate folder. So you could have your question. This is where you choose the number of files they can upload. So they can upload up to 10 different files here if you wanted to. They could also choose the size. So anywhere from 10 megabytes all up to 1 gigabyte. And a gigabyte is pretty large. So there's really the size on here. There's a bunch of room for them to upload things. That's that file upload. Again, there's a lot of examples where that could come into play. Yeah, and this is also where you add your new sections like we talked about before. So if I want to add a new section, it would break my form apart into different sections. All right, so looking at those are the question types. None of you are math, are you? Not really. So I won't go too much into the math. I'll just show you a real quick example. If I have a math question going in here, all I have to do is these 3 dots at the bottom. If I click on math, it's going to bring up this equation box. So now as a teacher, I can put my equation in there. So I could have my equation in there. Now, if I wanted it to be a solvable one, push OK, and you can see it automatically comes up with choices for me. So all I have to do is click add all, and that's going to be right in there. So my question would be solve, and they'd have to solve this equation. It selects the correct answer for me. So I'm going to make that worth 1 point. And this is a really cool part for math. So now when I go to add new, it has question ideas down here. So I could take and select which ones I wanted to add selected, and it just added all those for me that follow that same pattern and gives me the correct answer. So that math makes it really easy for them to answer questions in here or build questions for teachers. The math also works with the text. So if you had a text in here, you could do the same thing. And now when students go to click in this to answer, that's when they're going to get the equation box in order to set up their question. So I know none of you are math, but if you have people that are math and they want to learn more about this, definitely share them my way. All right, so now I'm going to get to a little bit outside of building, how to share this form. So the best way, if you're a classroom teacher, to share a form is through Microsoft Teams. The reason it's the best way is because when you go to create an assignment, you have the option to create a quiz. And when you create this quiz, you can choose from any form you've created. So I would build it in forms. And then let's say I wanted to put that one in there. The great thing about this is if I assign it to multiple classes now, it's going to build a brand new form for me each time. So I can choose which classes I wanted to go to, and it's going to build a brand new form. So now if I want to find that, I would just have to go to my group forms and it would be right in there. So that's the best way to share a form with students. If you need to share it for another reason, so it's not going to your students or you don't have a team set up, you go to the share button up here. You have 3 options. The first option is to share to get people to fill it out. So when I copy this link, that'll allow whoever I send it to complete the form. You have the option to share it as a template. And when you do this, so if you're in a team and you made the form for your team, you could copy that, share that with your team member, and they're going to get the link. So I'm going to go ahead and show you what that looks like. If I put that link up here, I have the option at the top to duplicate. And when I duplicate, it's going to make my own copy. So now I will be the owner of that form. All the data will be mine. No one else will see it. So that share as a template is how you share it for somebody else to use. And then you also have the option to add a collaborator. So if you have a group of people working on one form, you could copy that, send that to the person, and they'd be able to become a collaborator on that form, which means they would have all the rights that you have. Now, if you're wanting to collect responses for that, though, that means all of your responses would be on the same form too. So you just got to determine what your idea or your use is for that before you send it to them. So you either share for people to fill out, you share as a template, or you share to collaborate. So that's the sharing ways. The grading, I'm going to go back to my example. So when you're grading your forms now, if you share it through Teams and set it up as a quiz, it's going to grade automatically. You're good to go. You don't have to worry about it. It's just going to report your score to you. But if you want to look more in depth, if you go to responses on it, you can go either look at the holistic data. You can see what was brought in from the whole class, or you can do review answers. And this is where if you wanted to change a score for somebody, you could change that right there. You can leave them comments on what they did, so you can give feedback for them and keep going. So however you wanted to adjust. So if they got one wrong, that, and this is like back to Mike's example, they typed the right thing, it just didn't come in correctly. You could go ahead and give them the points for that, and then just leave the comment. Make sure you capitalize or spell triangular right, or however you wanted to fix that for them. So that is reviewing. Then when you're done with that student, you go to the next one and keep going on. You can delete too. So if you wanted to delete responses, you could delete those. If you wanted to clear out the whole form, if you go back here, you could delete all responses, and that would delete everything for you too. So that's looking at the forms for grading them. The responses is also how you look at a form if you just want to review the data you get. All right, so we talked about using Teams. Now, the next thing I want to talk about, and this one is going to be a little bit more complex. If I look at my responses in this right now, if I go open in Excel, it's going to take the snapshot of wherever that data is, and it's going to give me the results of that. So it's going to download a new spreadsheet for me, and I'm going to be able to see on Excel what the scores were, what their answers were, and all that kind of stuff. Now, this is important to understand. This is just a snapshot of where you were. So if I had now a student going and fill that out after I've done this, it's not going to show up on here because this data is static. That means it's not in real time. It just took that snapshot of where it was at. Sometimes this is fine. If you've had every kid in your class turn it in, you're good to go. You don't have to worry about anything. This is good enough. But sometimes, and I know Mindy, this may come into play for the library. If you have requests that you, or a form they always fill out, you may want to have that data so that it's dynamic, so that it's alive and that you can actually see updates when they come in. To get data where it's dynamic, if you ever create it through just the forms, it's going to be static data when you go to look at it. You're not going to be able to see live updates on a spreadsheet. To get it to be dynamic, you're going to have to go to Excel and start your form from there. So when I go to Excel, what I can do is click on New Workbook. And you can go ahead and title this workbook whatever it was. But now to build the form, if you go to Insert, Forms, you're going to do a new form right in here. Now, because I went that way, that's a little bit different to look at. Because I went through Excel to build the form, now I can build it like normal. Now on this spreadsheet, all data that comes in is going to be live. So it's going to update, and I'll see updates as they roll in.
That's awesome.
So, was there a question? Did somebody have?
No, I was just saying that's awesome.
Okay, perfect. So,
Thank you.
yeah, so I know I created a behavior monitoring form for our middle school, and it had to be something that we wanted to track the data, and we actually put formulas in so that would help calculate certain things. So I had to have the data live. I had to have it dynamic so that we could work with it. And in my spreadsheet, I linked it to some formulas and everything. So that's how I had to build that. Another way to do that is if you just go through your OneDrive, if you go to New, and instead of choosing Forms, you do Forms from Excel, it's going to do the same thing. It's going to start a workbook for you. So now it's going to create that form, but you'll have live data for that form going throughout. So that's just that static versus dynamic data. You really have to think about what are you using it for, how do you want to be able to view that data, and so on. So, all right, so I did my rambling. I talked way too much. I'll kind of want to open this up if there's questions on anything we saw, or if you have any comments or things you want to throw out there, please take some time right now to either think about those. You can type them in or you can shout them out. But that roughly was everything I wanted to get through to show you guys on this.
Hey, Joe, is there a limit to how long the YouTube video can be?
No, nope. It's because it's just embedded, so it's actually still pulling from YouTube. So you're not downloading it, so there's no limit. If it's on YouTube, you're good to go.
Okay.
And you can also, like I said, it can be YouTube or it can be stream videos. So if you put your own teaching videos in stream, you could link those too.
Hey, Joe, one of the things, you probably said that, and I had to walk out of the room for a minute, but whenever you're sharing, I mean, when you set your form up as a live form that feeds into a spreadsheet, and you needed other people to see that data, you know, you would then just share the spreadsheet link, view only link with the people that needed to see that updated, correct?
Yep.
I was just going to bring that out in case anybody needed to send that to other people, but you didn't want them to be in charge of collecting the data.
I think that's very helpful. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yes.
Because in the library, we have them sign in on a form. Actually, it was a Google form, but I will switch it to this instead. But our data wasn't live. And Jamie and I both have to log in to see it. So this will be very helpful for her to use it as well without having to sign in as me.
Mindy, the Google form does the exact same thing though. It'll do exactly what this is doing.
Okay.
We're not a Google district now, so Microsoft.
Well, and I made it when I first came here, and I came from a Google district. So
I did too. I'm just telling you. I mean, I love this, and I would definitely switch, but I'm just saying that it will update also.
Okay, good. I like the idea that I can share the data piece without having other people log in as me.
Yeah. That's awesome.
Then with that, when you build that form, when you build it through Excel, you really have to get it right the first time. I don't know if I'm gonna say that right, because what it does is it creates these as you build. So
Okay.
if you build this form, if you're going in and you're building it and you mess up a question and delete it, that box is still going to be there, and it's just going to build the next box for your next one, the next box for your next one. So it gets kind of wonky because it is live. So what I would do
Hey Joe,
is
can you not just delete those columns though? Would that affect it?
they come back and refresh as
Every
it's
time.
constantly
Okay,
syncing. So when it syncs again, it's going to come back and refresh that.
I see. Okay.
So what you'd want to do is, Mindy, you'd want to build like a practice form to make sure you have it exactly how it looks. I know it's kind of may seem like a waste of time, but I've always just built a practice form so I know exactly how I want it to look. And then I go through and I build my Excel one, just
Okay.
so I know exactly the order I want it to show up in.
Okay, perfect.
Okay.
Thanks.
Yes, ma'am. Anything else on there?
I don't think so. I thought your training was very good.
Okay. I
Very
know
helpful.
a lot in a little time, but one thing, and this is, I know it's probably way far and beyond, but the idea of just switching this to that dynamic data allows you to do so much with it, because now you can take this, you can actually connect this to other workbooks so that you have this dynamic data feeding into other workbooks that just build on each other. And when you start getting the formulas in there, you can run reports like that. You can have everything synced up, ready to go. It just takes a while to build and get everything connected, but it does do some great things there. So, all right. Well, I have to go help Janelle with her session now. Are there any other final questions you guys have for me at all?
No, thank you very much.
Yes, thank you.
Yes, thank you. That was wonderful.
Perfect. If there's anything, I hope you guys know, don't be afraid to contact me. I'm more than willing to Zoom at any time, and we can, if you want to build some stuff, just let me know. We can go through it together. So,
Thanks, Joe.
Yep, thank you.
all right. Thank you guys very much. Have a good rest of your day.
Bye, guys.
Bye.
Bye, Amy. Bye.